Okay, so The Force Awakens is out. This is awesome. Question is, A, is it a good movie? B, how does this stack up compared to the originals, the prequels, and the extended universe? The Force Awakens is not a great movie. It's also not a terrible movie. It's a good movie. However, it is a great accomplishment. I'm going to get more into that later. Now, ranking-wise, I'd say it's definitely better than the prequels, which were also great accomplishments. However, they were bad movies. It is not as good as the original series, which were both great movies and great accomplishments. Okay, some people might take umbrage to me saying that the prequels were great accomplishments. So let me qualify that. Lucas made any number of mistakes with the prequels. It's a plain fact, and they are not great movies. However, he's still an extremely talented director. He was able to create worlds in the prequels in a way that Abrams still hasn't shown the capacity to. He also pioneered digital cinema. He made the mistakes that were going to be made, not because he wasn't a talented filmmaker, but because he was a talented filmmaker, and these were the mistakes that are inherent to the medium. These are the mistakes that anyone who hasn't done it before are going to make. He basically paved the way for future filmmakers, and if he hadn't done the work he did, we wouldn't have Mad Max Fury Road this year. We wouldn't have The Force Awakens, who are both able to meld the digital and the practical effects world and make them both work as a beautiful whole. Without Lucas, that wouldn't exist, and as such, the prequels were absolutely great accomplishments, even if they left a great deal to be desired as movies. Okay. If The Force Awakens was not a bad movie, what did it do well? What was its accomplishments? For one, it was shot beautifully. Not only was the cinematography perfect, spot on, and harkening back to the original cinematography of the original series, they also managed to, as I mentioned briefly, meld practical and digital effects in a way that was seamless and that worked perfectly. And we can't give them enough props for doing this. This was a beautiful job. Now, that's not to say that there weren't a few hiccups. Even in the prequels, which really had their own issues, Lucas always managed to keep the subject very clear. You knew what was going on. There was a story, and you followed it. There wasn't anything drawing your attention away from it. Now, in The Force Awakens, Abrams sometimes succumbs to what I like to call modern filmmaking, where there's just too much going on in the frame at the same time. He doesn't do it a lot, and he must be applauded because it only happens a few times, but sometimes it does happen, where you're moving the camera around just to move the camera around. Okay, here's a perfect example. The BB-8 sequence, when they're going through a dogfight in the Millennium Falcon. There's this really nice moment where BB-8 falls into a chute, and it's, as everything else, a callback to the moment where R2 falls into the chute in A New Hope when the Millennium Falcon is doing some maneuvering. That's great. It's awesome. It's a nice moment. However, they do some dogfighting, and then they come back to that moment. They have BB-8 again about to fall into the chute, and instead he does this clever thing. He shoots out some cords or something and holds onto the wall, and he makes this very self-satisfied R2-like sound. It's a great moment. The problem is that moment shouldn't be there. What it does is it takes us out of the dogfight. It makes this parallel little storyline where the original R2 moment heightened the moments around it because it was short enough that it just gave a comment. This one becomes a story in itself, however small. And once we've had that chuckle and had that moment, we're now disconnected from the dogfight, and once we come back into it, we have to re-engage with the dogfight. And that, I'm kind of nitpicking here, but this is the kind of stuff that Lucas didn't make those mistakes. And even in the prequels, which were not great movies, he knew how to keep the focus of a scene, how not to dilute it. And as we go forward, I think we are definitely going to start noticing places where Lucas's genius really shines through, even in his poorer works. So let's continue on this theme. Let's look at the chase sequence of Rey and Finn through the marketplace on Jakku. What this is something that is endemic to modern filmmaking, which is empty calorie action sequences. It's a scene that does not in any way further the plot. It does nothing for the movie. All it does is create kind of a feeling of action, but they're never really in danger, but things are exploding. It's Michael Bayism. It is pointless, and it harms the movie. Let's get a good example here. Let's think about the original trilogy. When Luke and Leia and Han have to escape from the Death Star, no more than a second or two is used to establish the fact that they're running. There's no crazy long camera movements and things exploding and dodge the bullets and run, go, faster. No, because that is pointless. Instead, we have the establishment of what's going on, and then we start making scenes that tell us things about the characters. We have Han Solo charge stormtroopers head on in their base. This tells us everything we need to know about him. This is such an amazing exposition of character. We have Princess Leia, who quickly establishes that she's not such some princess who needs to be saved. No, she's going to take charge here. She's going to grab the blaster. She's going to go and attack. We have Luke Skywalker, who in an impossible situation uses some space farm boy MacGyverism. He shoots up his rope. He does this pirate movie swing across a chasm. We immediately know something about him. These are all events that you can look at. They say something about the characters. They can be described as happenings. How am I going to describe that chase sequence on Jakku? Well, they ran from explosions for like 30 seconds. Oh, they got knocked down a few times. What does that tell me? It tells me nothing. There was like one or two short moments where they had a connection, which was nice, and that exposed the characters, and props for that. But in general, that was not good. Bad action director, no biscuit. Now, what I am going to say is that, fortunately, there wasn't a lot of these scenes in the movie. But they did happen, and they shouldn't. You know what that reminds me of? It reminds me of the ice monster chase in the first Star Trek movie reboot. There is no purpose to that scene. What it does is nothing. You could take that scene out of the movie, and it would do nothing. It would change nothing. And if you can do that with a scene, that tells you there's probably something wrong with the scene. If you want to make the argument that this is just something that's necessary for modern filmmaking, that it's an evolution of action, not a mistake, I have only one thing to say to you. Fury Road. Mad Max is a movie that is almost in its entirety a chase sequence. However, every single moment has a point. Every moment, every scene leads, not only visually, but also story-wise, to the next. If you took any scene out of Mad Max Fury Road, the entire movie would suffer. And that's something you have to do if you want to be a good director. That's something Lucas understood. That's something a lot of modern filmmakers don't. And I really hope that we don't get Fast and Furious, the Furiouser Star Wars, because that would be very sad and would be a loss of good storytelling. Another thing that can be seen both as a strength and as a weakness is that The Force Awakens is largely an homage to A New Hope. Now, on one hand, this can be seen as a positive thing. It can be seen as anchoring the movie in its heritage, not only from a character and world point of view, but in fact from a storytelling point of view, using the same beats, the same moments as the first movie. On the other hand, you can also feel like we're just kind of treading old ground here with a nudge, nudge, wink, wink, know what I mean to the audience. I've seen both sides mentioned. I don't think there's a wrong or a right side. It remains to be seen if this is going to be like not allowing the movie to develop its own muscles, so that when the next few movies come out, they have no strength to stand on because the earlier movie was just a retread. Or if this, on the other hand, maybe it'll function as an anchor to hold Star Wars in its tradition so that it just doesn't get lost in focus groups and writing by committee. We can't say yet. I think, personally, that they were on the right side of too much. There was a lot of it, but they handled it well, and I enjoyed the callbacks. Continuing on the good, bad, light side, dark side theme, let's talk about characters. Now, what we've seen in Star Wars is something that I think has followed Abrams through most of his career. He writes or directs or allows to happen, whatever we want to call it, some really great protagonists. Poe. I really enjoy Poe. He's like a character straight out of the X-Wing novels. He's dashing. He's this big brother type. He's Biggs Darklighter out of the old movies, brought back and right there in a part of the plot, and it's a lot of fun. Or we have Rey. Let's just be honest about this. Rey is a female character who has stuff going on, who has her own internal life, who has a journey she's going to take, and especially in Hollywood today, that's unique. And it's fun. Oh my goodness, it's fun. She's more mature than Luke was when she started, but she still has a lot of things to figure out to go on, and she's interesting and she's fun. She's a great character, and I'm just going to enjoy taking the rest of the journey with her. And then, Finn. Finn is a character that he's like taken straight out of Japanese animation. He isn't a character that should exist in the West. He's this bad guy stereotype that's taken out of his element, reestablished, quickly developed, and we get to learn more things about him, create empathy with the bad guys. He's a fantastic character. I enjoy him so much. Now, there are problems with how these characters are written. Yes, absolutely. There's little things here, little things there. People have complained about them. I'm not thinking they're wrong, but from my point of view, these are all very fun characters, and I think they're well written, and I'm going to enjoy following them on their journey. Now, let's continue. We have the original characters. I think they were also handled very well. I think that Han Solo was pitch perfect. I think that Harrison Ford gave possibly one of the most nuanced and interesting performances of his career. And even if things happen, and we'll talk about that later, I think that internally he justified every moment. He made it real. Chewie was Chewie. There was no difference between him there and him in the old movies. He was who he was. And then we have Luke. I think they did the right choice. Leave him to the end of the movie. Otherwise, the movie's going to be all about him. We established the characters. We had something to search towards. And you can't really say much about him because he was in the movie for 5 seconds. What I will say is that that scene took way too long, and stop circling the camera. It's done. The robots, perfect. C-3PO's introduction, awesome. R2-D2, it's so beautiful to see them again. They were handled with their original characters. Nothing felt off, nothing felt wrong. Great. Princess Leia. Here's the one thing I have to say about the original characters. Princess Leia, I felt convinced by her performance. I believed her. However, I constantly felt like they were editing around her performance. And when she was on screen, I always felt a little bit awkward. And I can't say exactly why. I don't know if it was, I don't know, maybe it's just me, or maybe there's something with plastic surgery, with the face not quite, having the expressive breadth that it used to, or maybe that's just how they directed her. And I don't know how to say this, but some of her moments felt wooden. I still enjoyed her as a character. I love to see her again, but that was odd, and I hope that she gets to develop and be her full character in the next movie. Now to the ugly bits, the dark side. Crap. Let's start with Snarp or Snort or Snark or whatever. What is this? Is this a Flash villain? Okay, I mean, what? Did the entire writing team get together and go like, guys, I can't think of a villain. Guys. Let's just use Voldemort. Voldemort worked really well. Let's just use that guy. This guy is a travesty. Okay, let's think about Emperor Palpatine. We think Empire Strikes Back. He's introduced for 10 seconds. We get the barest glimpse of evil. It's fascinating. Think about Return of the Jedi, where he's further introduced. His character is developed. We get this full picture of this maliceful, masterful philosopher emperor, and we get to see his motivation. We get to feel how much he hates and wants, and we get to see him actively take part and make things happen. What a wonderful character. Snart? or Snort, or whatever the heck his name is. It seems like the only thing I really actually remember from him is that he really liked the Emperor's large hologram trick. That's all I got. You know what? In fact, someone mentioned this, and it's incredibly sad. The entire movie would have been more interesting without him. Imagine it. Kylo Ren, instead of just blindly following orders from General Boring, is instead lost at sea, trying to find the dark side on his own to fulfill his grandfather's legacy. Holy crap, that's an interesting movie. I want to see that explored. That's fun. Instead we get... What? You know you have a real problem with your movie when if you take out the main villain, it's better. General Hux. Yeah, I get it. It's Hitler. Boop. Yes, no. The Empire had been established as a character in the movies. It was established with decorum, with minimalist power, with malice, with strength. You know, okay, a lot of this was from the design. There was some great design work in the original movies. But really, who established it was Peter Cushing. Peter Cushing, his work as Moff Tarkin was fantastic. He brought the full bearing of British aristocracy, of power, of rightful malice. He brought it. He established that. And I believed him as the highest bureaucrat-in-chief of a universe-spanning empire. Absolutely. Hux, this is some 6-year-old bully who's spitting platitudes at an assembled corps on the Death Planet. Where are we at? The Death Planet now? Can we think of a new idea? I'm sorry, that's kind of embarrassing. I know. Let's skip that. I'm not even going to talk about that. General Hux. Why? They broke the character of the Empire. Captain Phasma? Okay. Looked good in the previews. Silver Stormtrooper. Okay, that's fun. That's interesting. I wonder what they're going to do with her. You know what they did with her? Nothing. You do not ever introduce a gun in Act 1 and then not use it by the end of the movie. That's not how storytelling works. Every single scene she was in was pointless. Finn could just as well have gotten the reprimand and whatnot from some nameless stormtrooper superior with an extra dash on their shoulder, or an officer. It would have been exactly the same scene. Nothing would have changed. They did not need her in order to be able to get the plans or what have you. She was completely pointless. She took our engagement as an audience, asking who she is, what's she doing, what's her point, why is there a gun in Act 1, and squandered it. Threw it away, completely wasted our time, our investment as moviegoers, as wanting to know what her story was. That is so wrong. Hopefully, there was actually a larger story for her, and they had to cut it out because of time or something like that. Because if she was put in the story only so that they could have another character at Toys R Us, that is unforgivable. That is bad storytelling, and that should not exist in a movie that should be of this caliber. Finally, and very sadly, Kylo Ren. This is a character, I'm not even going to say too much about it, I'm just disappointed. It's a character who could have been great. It was a character who has been great in other versions of the story, in the extended universe. Not amazing, but good enough. He was never developed. He was developed too much and too little. If we had gotten just the barest hint of him, if we had been guessing at his motivations, at who he was, if he had never taken off his helmet when he killed his father, if we didn't even know he was his father, if we were guessing at these things, it would have been so much more interesting. If he instead had been motivated, if we had been given a chance to see him develop as a character, if we had been cheering on his successes, if we had been sad when he failed, if we had actually invested in him because we had gotten to know him, he would have been interesting. But instead we're in this sad, lukewarm middle area where Kylo Ren is just boring and a disappointment on every level. You do not make the main, maliceful, powerful character of your movie whiny and boring. That is the second largest failure of The Force Awakens. We'll get to the largest failure soon. Okay, before that, let's talk about coincidences. Star Wars has always banked on coincidences. That's fine, that's great. However, not when you take it too far. We have this moment with Chewie and Han just happening to be in the right system to find the Millennium Falcon. That does not work. It stretches credulity beyond the breaking point. It takes us out of the movie, breaks our suspension of disbelief. And that's not something you do if you want to make a great movie. Sorry. I mean, we can kind of permit it because it's only a good movie, but not good. Or the whole R2-D2 thing. R2-D2 just happening to have the rest of the map that we need to be able to put the full map together. Abrams has explained it outside of the movie, and that's fine, whatever. Okay, there's a reason for it. But from a storytelling point of view, it's pointless. It doesn't contribute anything to the story. R2 could have been introduced any other way. It would have been fine. The map could have been given, and boom, it works. The only thing doing this does is gives R2-D2 this Deus Ex Machina moment of being able to show up and save the day when it doesn't really fit in to the flow of the story, to the point of the whole thing. It's unfortunate and pointless. And, yeah. Let's go on to the Force. It was established in the previous movies that you can kind of do small things if you're Force sensitive. And after weeks, maybe months of training, Luke was able to learn how to sort of start controlling it with a Jedi Master literally riding his back. And here in The Force Awakens, apparently Rey is able to learn how to do mind control, which seems to be one of the most difficult things you can do in the Force, just by sort of insinuating it from what Kylo Ren sort of is doing. No. Doing this is completely breaking all of the lore, everything that has been established in the previous movies, for no reason other than, oh, we want the scene to be written that way. No! What the heck? Do you not know how to... Look, the scene could have been written any other way. She could have seen some switch and Force flipped it and managed to... No one was guarding, or she fights her way out, or however the heck she does it. You don't break the established lore of an entire universe because it's more convenient for the scene you want to write. Bad director. No biscuit. Okay, finally to the ugly point, and this is the worst thing in The Force Awakens, and it is Han's death. His love of his life is asking him to save their son. Okay, I buy that. I buy that. It can absolutely be justified. And Star Wars has always used deep moments, loss of people we care about, difficult family situations, making really hard choices where there's no obvious good answer. But this is not that. This could have been a vindication for Han Solo. This could have been a moment for the other characters to learn from, to drive them. It's none of those things. It's thrown away. In A New Hope, we did not expect Obi-Wan to die. When he's off fighting Darth Vader, when he's doing all these things, he's been established as a character who can get through any situation. He's not only wise, he can hand out beatings just as easily as he can hand out truths. This is a master at the top of his game. So when he's fighting Darth Vader and everyone else is getting to the Millennium Falcon, we're not wondering, oh, he's going to die. We're wondering, how's he going to get to the ship? Oh no, how's he going to make it? It never enters your mind that he's going to die. So when he chooses to die, when he accepts it, it's no. You feel with Luke when he goes, no, what happened? This is wrong. This is This is not how this story's supposed to go. When Luke is on the ship, crushed, unable to deal with what just happened, we are right there with him. That's why Obi-Wan's death is so powerful. That's why when we learn things from his death, when we learn later on that even if someone dies, they're still somehow with us, and we learn from them. When he has the voice, the Force voice, in the trench of the Death Star, giving Luke this final piece of advice. That's why it's so powerful. And then we have Han Solo. When Han went down and started putting up thermal detonators, or whatever the charges are called these days, the entire audience kind of leaned back. They were uneasy. Something bad was going to happen. And obviously when he starts going out onto the catwalk, the entire audience starts going, no! Oh no! Oh, don't go! No! No, something bad's going to happen! There was nothing surprising about his death. There was nothing that drove the rest of the story. There was no point to it. When he died, the audience did not go, oh no, he died. They went, oh no, they killed him. There's a difference. When you kill a character not because it's necessary to drive the arc forward, when you kill a character because you want to mirror the old movie, or when... I don't know why the heck they did it. I mean, maybe a devil's advocate. It's something that's going to affect Kylo Ren, maybe a movie down the road or 2 movies down the road. I hope so, but I'm really giving the benefit of the doubt at this point, and it still is a terrible, terrible choice to do it like this for this movie. It doesn't drive anyone. Chewie is the only one who reacts in kind of a correct manner, which is, what the bleep? Pew! It was done so poorly. It doesn't have any repercussions in the story. It doesn't drive anyone. There's no point to it. And it was handled in the most boring way possible, which I think is the saddest thing that could possibly happen, is that you kill the character for no purpose. You give his death no meaning. It's a boring Fast and the Furious death. So that's absolutely the worst thing with The Force Awakens, and it's a disappointment. So that's where the idea of homage as a movie kind of starts to fall apart. When you screw up the pivotal point of a movie because you don't understand what it means, because you don't understand how it's supposed to impact the characters, when you don't understand just how masterfully George Lucas did it in the original movies, that means you have failed in a very important way. I want to point out that in The Phantom Menace, which was an awful movie in many ways, Qui-Gon Jinn died well. We didn't expect him to die. Not like that. When he dies, he creates things that happen. It sets events in motion for Obi-Wan. It creates this final battle, which is really fantastic as far as cinema is concerned. The rage we feel, the events that come out of it. It's a really well-made death. The rest of the movie has problems, but that's really done well. When The Phantom Menace beats you at the most important moment in the movie, now to balance that, I'm definitely going to say that The Force Awakens is still a good movie. It's fun. There's good characters, the protagonists are fun, and I think that the thing that people said about the prequels, that, well, it's for kids and kids are going to enjoy it, I think that actually is true in this case. I think that The Force Awakens is going to be a fun journey, that kids can bring these characters with them, want to be them, play them at the playground, and I think as such, it absolutely does a great job. And I'm going to see it again. I've already seen it twice. However, it missed the opportunity to be a great movie. And given the quality of the people that worked on it, that's a shame. In conclusion, I think the thing that can really be said about this movie, about the old ones, is that in comparison, they shed light on just how much George Lucas contributed to these movies. Not just the worlds he built and the characters, but in fact the way he made the movies, and just how strong he was many times as a filmmaker. And I think that as time goes by, we're only going to come to appreciate this more. So, those are my thoughts on The Force Awakens. I hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, even though it had some flaws. May the Force be with you. Always.